Coming up, a nice return to the Arizona desert with my man, Steve Williams.
We're back in the desert.
We're back in business. You know, the last time we tried to hit record, I had just come from the dentist. I could barely carry a sentence. Mm-hmm. You and Mike Maddox did an exceptional job of keeping things moving. Well, I had to basically be a casual observer.
It was fun. You have articulation back, though, buddy. Thank you.
Well, it's coming back.
Yeah,
it may not be 100%, but you know what? We got to give this a shot. We're in the office today together. Like our good friends Chumbawamba once wrote and sang, I get knocked down, but I get up again.
And they're pissing the night away.
Oh, yeah. And that's what we're going to do today with this new episode of Plugged In. So, you know, Steve and I try to periodically share what we're hearing and seeing in the course of our travels. So maybe, you know, 3 or 4 times a year, we just like to go, the two of us, and riff on some things that we believe thematically are important for folks who are running and growing and really trying to change the businesses that they're a part of. So this one's for you guys.
That's right. Well, I've been, let's see, I went coast to coast last week. I was in Southern Cal for a board meeting and then flew to Connecticut for a board meeting.
Oh,
horrible travel week.
Yeah.
Just a horrible travel week. I'll be heading to D.C. this weekend and then off to Chicago, which we'll talk about later.
Oh, nice light travel for you.
Yeah.
You know, we probably passed each other in the air because I've been bouncing around. I was up in Banff, Canada a few weeks ago, which was pretty spectacular with some fintech folks. Before that, I'd been out on the West Coast, out in Orange County. I've been up in Hershey, Pennsylvania. I just was in Huntington Beach yesterday. I'm in Scottsdale today. We'll be in Chicago next week. I've made a few trips up to Boston. Got my Red Sox hat on because we're recording this. The Sox beat the Yankees last night in Game 1 of the wild card playoffs.
Here we go.
So for good luck, I'm bringing the Sox hat back out. Now, this will drop after that series is done. So even if the Red Sox find a way not to beat the evil empire, we at least got one good one under our belt.
Nice.
And we'd like to get good things under our belt. So, you know, you talk about where we've been, you know, I think going ahead and talking about some of the themes we want to cover would probably be helpful for listeners.
Let's go. We got some songs.
Well, you know, we've got songs like always. But I think we want to talk about things that are capturing our attention and our imagination. So we'll talk a little AI. Everyone's talking about it, but I think we got a different spin on it. You mentioned Chicago. You and I are going to be with the folks at Second Curve. So this is Tom Brown's annual shindig. So we've got some things to talk about because Steve will be.
It's basically Coachella for bankers. Yeah.
Oh, we're so cool. But Steve's going to be a presenter there, so I'm going to pick his brain and get a little sneak peek on this. And then since we're in Arizona and the weather is starting to come down just a teeny bit, we know that acquire or be acquired is on the horizon in the end of January, beginning of February. Those words, acquire or be acquired, lend a conversation to mergers and acquisitions, I think, quite nicely. So we'll talk M&A on this episode as well.
Yeah.
You're good with that?
My phone alerts are buzzing with M&A announcements right now, and I know you have a lot of
some
conversations going on in front of the curtain and behind the curtain right now.
Yeah.
So
heck yeah. Well, we got a lot to cover in a short period of time. So you mentioned music. We're coming back to it. I was thinking about this on the flight over as I listened to some good Rush songs. So you know, we got a lot of options with Rush, Limelight, Spirit of the Radio, but I think we go Tom Sawyer to get things cranked up. You like Tom Sawyer?
Oh yeah, because I had a buddy, Kevin Keesaw, who would drive his pickup truck on the way to school, and he would be doing. I'd see him going down the street like this.
Yeah,
doing
just
his Neil
creative,
Peart,
right?
Just doing his Tom Sawyer, absolutely.
Well, you know, like music like that gets people jazzed and excited. And I think there's a lot of things in the banking space that are getting people excited. And, you know, change really does capture our imagination because it's unexpected and it can be exciting. I bring this up because on the AI front, I know that there's been a number of presentations made around the possibilities and the potential. But I also know that there's a pendulum effect that sometimes takes place. And you and I, as we prepared for this, we're kind of tossing around this idea that maybe some folks are starting to say, hey, I'm not getting the return that I thought I was already. You want to build on that one?
Yeah, well, hats off to Gartner, one of the top research company who long ago created something called the hype curve, which says every innovation technology goes through this, kind of frothy excitement. And then they go into something called the Trough of Disillusionment. And then they work their way back up into true growth and true, change. I think we're entering the Trough of Disillusionment. We're about 3 years since the great announcement of ChatGPT for large language models. Yes, The Economist is saying, they had an article about not meeting expectations. Apple did a really interesting study that large language models kind of start to lose their improvements over time. We obviously had Ron, our research director, write about Grok becoming racist and sexist within 24 hours before they retuned it. I just think the way to look at this right now, Al, is we're in that trough because we got too excited out of the starting blocks. But there was a period of time, just like the dot-com boom and then bust. There was that time where Amazon, in that dark days, lost 85% of its market value. Mm-hmm. And then I heard it did okay after that. So we're in that. And I just want to, you and I talk about, we're in the era of gritty use cases. Roll up your sleeves and do something. 3 examples I'm going to talk about. One is one of our colleagues, Nick Lane, showed this one. A $9 billion commercial bank. What's one of the biggest problems for IT? The help desk, because we're all so stupid. So they used a knowledge base connected to large language model. They've cut their human touched help desk tickets by 50%. Yeah. Another institution leveraging chatbots, $5 billion. They've doubled their off hours chats because of the availability of the bots when employees aren't there. And they've reduced their live chat discussions by 50%. And then finally, you're seeing a lot of it applied to things like check fraud, where even tiny community banks, Texas National Bank in Texas, saving $300,000 by using AI applied to check processing. Yep. So you add all that up. It's not one thing, but it's going to be kind of boring as we slog through it.
Some paper cuts.
Then over time, I think what we're going to see, key question, for every CEO right now, if you have 1,000 heads today in your company, how many will you have 5 years from now?
Right. Well, what's interesting, you're pulling some data. I jotted some notes down myself. I mentioned being in California yesterday. I presented at a conference around kind of what your tech stack of the future is going to cost you. And so I work with our performance program team here at Cornerstone to pull some data around what banks are spending on average based on their asset size. So we found for an $8 billion bank, they're spending about $19.2 to $21.6 million on an annual basis. If you think about a $12 billion bank, they're between $28.8 million and $33.6 million.
Those are big numbers.
And then you get up to a $20 billion bank, they're between 44 and 62 million on an annual basis. So you throw that over a 3-year, period, you think of Trough of Disillusionment, like now you're talking like 150 plus million for a $20 billion bank. People talk AI as if it's going to save the money, right? Like all of a sudden we're going to cut costs. Yes, there's going to be opportunities there, but I think you've also got to figure out where and how you want to position your business. Like the strategy of what do I not want to be becomes just as important as what you do aspire to become when you think about what you're already spending money on. And so I get the sense from talking to some CFOs that there's a real healthy appetite to figure out on the staffing front, how can we become a leaner, more efficient organization? How can some of these tools accelerate our business objectives that we're driving towards, but also a realization that we're going to spend more money as we bring this in. So maybe the tools are cheaper, but the actual expense might go up.
Yeah.
So we're starting to model that. And I think that's lends itself to that trough of disillusionment where it's not going to be the silver bullet that helps your earning profile and makes you look
in
like
quarter one, right?
A better organization.
I think CFOs with bank technology spending feel like a parent giving their high schooler a credit card and just getting the bill at the end of the month and going, where did it all go? So we've always kind of waved that flag about spend visibility at the C-suites, not just down with the techies.
Yeah. Well, and, thinking about practical use cases, let me flip it back to being in Canada. I listened to Alison Netzer, who had been the CMO at Nimbus. Now she's off doing something pretty cool. She was one of the speakers that was, giving some perspective on marketing and how you can differentiate and distinguish yourself. But interesting tidbit from her was an acknowledgement that a tone and voice guide for an individual could be developed and then uploaded to your ChatGPT.
Right.
So that as you're writing things, instead of asking a tool to be, your author, you can say, treat me like you're the editor of what I've written and follow my voice and tone guide so that it sounds like you, Steve Williams, as opposed to some kind of corporate, person. So I think those are the practical use cases that take some time, effort, and creativity. Not a lot of expense, but it could return some real value.
Write my term paper, but make it look a little crappy so it's real.
Give me a B+ term paper, not the A-, so that the teachers aren't going to be as suspicious.
Yeah, but more to come. I think it's just it's slow and steady and up and to the right with AI and other pieces of automation. So
it's still fascinating times, right? Like we'll be talking about this for years on end. Talking about things that go year after year. It's like Whitesnake, here I go again on my own. It's back to the future with Tom Brown and the Second Curve event that's coming up in Chicago. So, every year Tom does a great job of pulling together an exceptional group of executives from across the U.S. This year is no different. He was kind enough to invite you to provide some color and context as to what's going on in the financial services space. So you want to give folks maybe a little sneak peek of what you're thinking about?
Yeah, I think when we go to planning and we think back a couple years ago to a mini banking crisis, liquidity still comes up in every strategic plan, and especially for some of the folks you see up that are hard charging commercial or regional banks. So with liquidity still there, I think one of the challenges I want to bring up is, hey, if we look around this room, we have a lot of older Gen Xers and potential younger baby boomers. They look and feel the same. The generational movement of financial services is something we try to cover a lot with Ron Shevlin, Mary Wisniewski, others on our team. And there's just a couple statistics I'll bring up. One is, I like to joke, Gen Z is very non-monogamous when it comes to financial providers.
Don't
we used
tell
to
your
think
wife.
about my primary bank. They don't think that way. Obviously we have dozens of apps, and Ron has done some research to show basically 40% of Gen Z millennials have more than one checking account, and direct deposit doesn't mean anything in terms of more products. 25% of them also hold cryptocurrency. And Ron has estimated that the brokerage accounts that Gen Z, younger Gen Ys are using, Robinhood, SoFi, others, have taken $2 trillion of liquidity out of traditional banking. So I think that threat, got to take it very seriously, because even if you're a commercial bank, you're going to need funding. And the other thing tied to that is we are seeing that the mid-sized banks are not getting the same power out of their delivery system. So the average deposits per branch have actually gone down in the last 5 years. And it doesn't look good compared to the big guys. I'm going to show some statistics. Big guys have 4 and 5 times the average deposits per branch than our players. So I think we have a delivery system we have to look at. And I joked to you the other day, it's kind of like the Pizza Hut restaurant with the jukebox and the pinball machine and the ashtrays is getting pretty empty. That's a branch today, but we're not doing delivery yet. We're not on DoorDash yet. And so the whole digital front door and how we tie that is huge. I think that's the big takeaway. If liquidity is our existential threat, we've got to be looking at younger generations, how they do financial services, and what that means for liquidity.
Yeah. Well, when we're in Chicago, I think, you're going to be able to bring that type of Pizza Hut example to everyone's attention. But you mentioned the strategic planning component that kind of helped influence some of your presentation. We both are invited into different board settings where, we run through scenarios, we talk about projections. But what struck me this summer as really interesting was the ask around creating capacity for the team to deliver something above and beyond what they are. Because I think there is a growing appreciation that, the shoe leather and the getting out, seeing your clients, making sure you have a tight and real relationship can't be substituted. It can't be, outsourced to somebody else. When you talk about the big banks and what they're winning, when we think of regional community banks being so, quote, relationship driven, creating capacity to get up and out of your normal routine so that you're going to the high value opportunities like that was something that I was really pleased to hear, and to see actual examples as to how people were refining the use of their time.
Yeah. Well, when you think about, how much do I pay to a premium for another bank compared to what if I just had some junior people free up some capacity for my rainmakers or for my change agents? I think that's a good point.
Yeah. All right. So, you talk about, creating capacity, doing different things, and also how do you, sustain franchise momentum and franchise value. We're in this industry where all of a sudden we're getting deals announced that are really, really noteworthy.
Right. It was so quiet first half of the year compared to now.
Crickets compared to where we are, but I really think the Synovus Pinnacle deal kicked off so many different announcements. I mean, you think about Huntington and what they're doing. You think about PNC and where they're trying to go in Colorado. We're talking big brands doing big moves. And they're making big bets on the future. So I mentioned Acquire Be Acquired. That's going to be coming up end of January. I think it's, let's see, what is it? January 31st is a Saturday when it kicks off. We should know that the Killers are going to be opening the Phoenix Open.
Killers are open, yeah.
Which is actually getting us super excited. Just, anyone cares, Killers out here in Arizona will be fun. But Acquire Be Acquired will be a good time as well. So, when we think about where the industry is coming from relative to where it could go, I love these, traditional bank-on-bank deals where you're seeing the timing, shorten in terms of the approval cycle, it gives, I think, people more confidence that they can not just announce
There's a
something, but they
huge
can
feeling
close it.
like do it now.
Do it now
the-
and get it
I
right.
can't imagine an approval cycle shorter than right now. So if we're thinking of doing a deal in the next 24 months, let's do it right now.
Yeah. So, I mean, did I give you a song? Because if not,
No,
would be
what's the song?
Florida Georgia Line and Luke Bryant. This is how we roll, right? Because this is how these banks are going to roll.
Yeah.
They're going to say we have opportunities to grow and differentiate what we are able to do, spread costs over a wider base, use some of the technologies that are becoming more commercially accepted in ways that allow us to be client first, client always. But again, I wanted to talk a little bit about how markets reward efficiency, and how regulators, as they're demanding resilience, kind of pushes this whole M&A cycle forward. I've been taking notes about like what some of the former plugged-in guests would say. So Tom Michaud from KBW has said, hey, look, banks with thin margins, uneven efficiency, and weak growth, stories, they're the ones that turn into the sellers. And so as we start to look at performance and we start to make some bets, I think it'll be pretty interesting to say, were we right? Were the sellers the ones that we identified? But more importantly, who are the next wave of potential acquirers as we get into this?
Early in the year, I said there won't be big deals, and you said there will. I think you're going to be right. I think we're going to see some big ones.
We never want to be the fortune tellers, but you start to listen to the different discussions that are taking place. And when I think about the start of the year, and I look at a bank like Equity out in Kansas, we had Brad Elliott, their CEO, join us earlier this year to talk about their growth plans. He had just announced a few different acquisitions. Since then, he's had multiple banks that have said, hey, we want to be part of what you've built. And so when I talk to different executives, they look at Equity and they hold it up as an example of building the right culture and the right profile that it would attract smaller institutions to say our future is one that benefits from a business like Equity. There's other ones that are saying, hey, we're in these competitive markets. We've got to figure out how we're going to make hay while the sun shines. And the different conversations, they may not come to fruition. But I would bet you before the end of the year, we're going to have a few more significant deals announced that will get people pretty surprised.
Yeah. And I think one of the key things, can I hold the talent? Because we were joking about a CEO who formerly was in Colorado the minute that PNC announced the deal for First Bank, saying, oh, by the way, I'm hiring in Colorado.
I thought that was interesting. That LinkedIn post that he put up got quite the traction in the moment. So, these are the things that you and I are seeing in our travels. It's nothing earth-shattering, but again, this is a business, and these are businesses built on highly regulated, expectations, compliance burdens that people understand. Consumer behavior is changing, commercial expectations are shifting at the same time. We've got some great franchises that are now in a position to say, we're going to be bold and we're going to make some bets. We're going to move with a sense of speed and purpose. And if that's attractive to you, then we might be open to a conversation about what a combined entity looks like.
Yeah. If I'm Kevin Blair at Synovus, though, I want to combine those organizations. But if I get mired in operational complexity and I can't keep moving on transformation. So for everybody doing a deal, you got to have the team that unwinds the complexity. And you've got to have a team that keeps moving on transformation. If you kind of create this debt of time of not doing anything for 3 years, you'll wake up and go, wow, that slowed down our speed to market.
100%. Well, look, Steve, you and I know we're going to be back in the studio. We've got some great bank CEO guests that we're just calendaring. We're just trying to make sure that we get the right time and date so we can continue to get plugged in with some of the industry's standout executives.
Yeah, one of my favorites is coming up. I won't reveal it, but
don't reveal, but we will tease.
Great CEO on the way.
So anyway, I appreciate Steve Williams joining me, Al Dominic here in Scottsdale, and for everyone who's getting plugged in with us, we'll do this again as soon as we can.
Thanks so much, guys.
If you enjoyed today's Plugged In episode, make sure to hit that follow button on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or wherever you're listening. We've got more great conversations coming up, and you won't want to miss them. Thanks for tuning in.